All right, welcome back, guys. This is an episode interview with Benjamin and Heidi Sadler. In the first part of our conversation, we talked about music and marriage. We also uh, started talking about mental health and ministry. And so, this second part of the conversation, we're going to go deeper into that. And like to start with asking you guys to tell us more about your newest album.
Mm. Yeah, so we titled the album long before COVID ever hit, which means we should just never give album titles because apparently it determines the course of history.
Man.
Uh, we called the album Farewell Innocence, and we recorded it right before the pandemic, so we had to mix it and do all the hard stuff like over the phone and everything because we couldn't go back in and do that. But it's an album where we kind of just looked at all of the tracks. You know, there was no one song that encompassed the entire theme of all of those songs, but all of those songs deal with this idea of kind of like embracing the reality that life is hard and that there's darkness, but there's also beauty in the darkness. So that's kind of where the theme of the record went.
Yeah. So, tell me some of the names of the tracks.
I think the first song is called Valley, and that's kind of like my intense version of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Because that psalm is usually, usually there's an image of
there's always a lamb.
There's
somewhere.
a stream. There's trickling water.
There's stream.
In the
Yeah,
background.
but it's like the valley of the shadow of death. So yeah.
Yeah.
So guys, if you haven't listened to the track yet, it's not Christian metal.
No.
No, I'd be terrible at that.
But it's a cool song. Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did Angels and Monsters, which actually is most of these songs are about a decade old. Angels and Monsters is the one that was written like in the past couple years. And that's really just kind of coming back to wonder and recognizing that there's more going on behind the surface of life than we recognize. There's Under the Weight.
You learned to play hammer dulcimer just for that song.
I did. Not as good as Rich Mullins, but I did learn to play the hammer dulcimer.
Very cool.
And I guess Overcome is a song for after the wedding day. Because they're all a lot of like love songs are all about like the initial meeting and that first infatuation. Overcome was about like the wonder of just being with the same person for a long time. And then Goodbye was about my grandfather who passed away when I was 17. So yeah.
The it's talking about the valleys and the and the overcoming and the goodbyes. Man, such an appropriate soundtrack for a pandemic.
Oh yeah,
it'll either make you feel depressed or very understood.
Oh man. Yeah, and Ben, we just barely started. As Ben's also been learning how to be a filmmaker, so we're actually in the process of doing a documentary of the same title, but just kind of going more into depth. So we're just starting working on that. So.
Yeah, both kind of the plan because we all
the plan, yeah.
But the plan is it's about like a making of the record, talking about like the arrangements because we had our full band play on this one, and so having Ryan, awesome. David, and Brian play was just, oh my gosh, I love those guys so much.
They're so good.
But being able to talk about the musicality of it, but also really unpack a little bit more of just the theme of Farewell Innocence.
Nice. So that you're working on that this year.
That's my goal.
Great.
Yep. Yeah. We don't know if it'll be out this year or not. It depends. Plans keep changing every day. They keep changing. So. Yeah, but it's good to always have a couple things to be working on.
Nice. Yeah. And what are you working on these days, Heidi?
Me, well, see, I have the problem. I'm the kind of creative person that I have like a million projects that are 90%, 80% done. So I have like 5 books that are 90% done. So I'm working on finishing things, but so I've got a couple we're actually in the process too of we're creating a book that goes with season 3 of the Chasing Ebenezer show, our web show, and we're in the process of working on that. It's a creativity show, and so we're going to look at the art of being human, just exploring all the different aspects, kind of just embracing that I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And that I don't have to be a superhero. That's not who I am. But how do I work with myself? But it'll be a creative workbook. And so the show's going to have a weekly, or, we try to do a weekly worksheet to go with it every week. Because we want people to be expressing who they are creatively. So I'm working on putting that together and finalizing that. And then I've started painting in the past year. When I have PTSD and my brain just can't even, I freeze half the time, and so I've needed something to kind of that I don't have to think about. And so painting has been so therapeutic, and those are the main things that I've been working on. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The and is painting something that you'd been thinking about or wanting to do, or did like your therapist suggest trying it? How'd you get
No,
into it?
I think I think that we all thought that COVID wasn't going to be around very long, and I was like, oh well, I've always wanted to kind of draw or paint. Yeah, why not? And so I just like started. I think I must have watched Bob Ross or something, and then it was like, oh, this is a serious thing, and I might not be able to play music for income for a while. So it's been kind of nice because they go together so well, visual art and music. So it's just, it feels like it's just further rounding out what I do. It doesn't feel like it's something so detached. But there's something about just pouring
It
paint.
feels connected
It does, and
to who you are.
yeah, it does. And there is just something about paint. I don't know. It's just something very hands-on, and it just really, I lose track of time sometimes, so I do have to set timers. Otherwise, I lose track of time.
It's true.
I'll share the link to your Instagram.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So folks can see your art. What I like about your art is that it's so colorful.
Oh,
I really like how
lots of
colorful it
color.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like happy
Oh,
colors.
good. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because there's some colors that I would like never wear personally, but like it's funny, my mom's colors, it's like they've just unintentionally appeared because my mom was so much color, and so it's interesting. I don't know how the psyche of all that works, but I'll do something like, oh, those are mom's colors. It's kind of funny to see it that way. So
Do you think about her while you're doing art?
I do.
You
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
that you
Mhm.
lost your mother last year in the first
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We were one of those lockout families of the hospital. Yeah, she didn't die of COVID, but
You
yeah.
couldn't be with her
No, we weren't,
because of
couldn't be.
COVID.
They did let my dad come in at the end and confirm ending life support, and he was able to be with her. But no, we were in the parking lot for hours and hours and hours. So yeah, it was one of those awful. That's probably why I have some PTSD. It probably just made it worse. But yeah, especially during those first few months, especially, yeah, or I'll think, oh, these are mom's colors, or yeah, I always think, oh, would she be proud of me, or would she like this, or what would mom think about this, or so yeah, she was a Disney lady. Disney color. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The so many people are um going through loss, what it like
Mhm.
personally, like losing their jobs,
Yeah.
their homes being things being disrupted. their or losing their loved ones. Just in some ways we're getting numb to the numbers. I think just last week it was like over 500,000 people. So we're numb, but also just exhausted by the loss and the grief. It's hard to wrap our brains around things. Benjamin, how was it to support your wife, to support Heidi while this was happening, and you lost your mother-in-law?
Yeah, it was definitely a learning process for me. I was really grateful because a year before, a friend of mine and I did a men's rites of passage with a men's group. And one of the big themes that I never really done was intentional grieving, very intentional grieving, and the importance of that, and the importance of walking in it and embracing it. So I think in some ways, when Cheryl passed, I at least had some kind of a context, but it took me a couple months because for me, like, it was an event that happened versus an atmosphere that we're in. And I think that I had to learn how do I live in the atmosphere and context of Heidi's mom passing? What does that do for my patience level, for my disposition towards being grumpy? Or, it just made me realize that everything I did carried that much more weight because there was already this unbearable hole that was already there. So I really did not do it well the first few months. I'd like to think I'm slowly getting better at it. But
the not doing it well, who was aware of that first, like you, or did Heidi have to point that out?
Well, let's say that I didn't exactly score points either. I think that the part of it too is I don't process grief instantly. So I have a very delayed reaction to it. And so I'll just be, okay, we got to get mom out of the hospital. We got to get a coffin. We got to find a cemetery. I go into worker bee mode. Someone has to do this. And so it seems like, well, she's fine. Look at how well she's handling.
It gives you something to focus on.
Right. But then when, like, you drop your coffee cup, that'll just trigger it.
And that was the thing, I think. Some of it was that.
It seems bizarre. Like, I don't know why Savon, you would know the answer to this, why we can do all these other things and then one little thing will happen and we're kind of basket case, which it's not that big a deal to spill your coffee. It's really not. But so, yeah. And I think
that coffee spill, like, you're busy doing all those things and there's good results when you pour in to helping other people, and you were busy, like, a lot, Heidi, like delivering food for folks that needed food.
That's right. That was so early pandemic.
Like, so you're you are definitely a helper and a servant to so many people, but that coffee thing, it's like that's where, like, it's not in your control, and it's like a messy, explosive reminder.
That's deep.
That's good.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's like, it's but an atmosphere that we're in.
Yes.
Not an event. Losses. That's so good, Benjamin.
That is really good. You verbalize it. I never thought about it that way until you said it. Yeah, that's very helpful.
And this is not playing out just in your home. Like, you guys serve in a few churches. So I'm curious about that. Guys, how do you minister to other people when you're going through grief?
It's a good
How
question.
did you do that?
What was so amazing, Savan, was I think that we're usually the helpers in ministry, and it was almost like people were really honored to pour into us.
Hmm.
And so I don't know how we did things from day to day. We just did it. But what I did notice was like I experienced extravagant love
Hmm.
from our fellowships, and yeah, it's humbling. It's humbling to be the person
Mhm.
in that posture if you're so used to not being in that posture.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think because the whole world's going through a shared grief, um, at first it was like, oh my gosh, why did my mom have to die right? Like this is the worst time. And yet at the same time, the whole world's grieving, and so the whole world gets it. And so yeah, I think we're just all in a shared grief and everyone's in pain, and so it's different pain for everybody, but I think there's a communal pain, and I think you do get closer to people, even if it's just on Zoom. I think that you do
Hmm.
get closer. And I think too, um, having having when the things when George Floyd died, I mean that was only a couple weeks after. I think, I mean
Yeah,
my
it was
timeline's a little
right
off,
around the same
but
time.
it was right around the same time. And so I think my mom dying, and then just Ben wrote a really beautiful poem. You figure he's crying out for his mom, and it's kind of like, wow, his mom and my mom are together. I don't know, it just made it all the more grieving, and so it felt like it was more than it helped me to really pause. I think it helped us both to
Mm.
pause and like, this is the time to look at this. It made me more maybe in tune to it, even so, because my mom had just died, and knowing that was how he ended his life in this horrific way.
Hmm.
So yeah, just the timing of it all was really, it didn't pass us by, and has really
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know if that makes
You
sense, but yeah.
so you had to slow down, and it eventually caught up with you, and you had to deal with it.
Yes, I told Ben, I was like, I'm gonna have a breakdown in like 6 months. And I told my friends, is I don't understand why I work this way. And
Hmm.
so then eventually it was, but because I've had depression before, but my startle response is that's what was new,
Yeah.
where I just,
Hmm.
and so I think I was putting off counseling because I didn't want to do virtual counseling. I mean, who does, Savon? You have to do it all the time now. But
Hmm.
honestly, my therapist is so wonderful, and so and that saves me travel time, so I don't have to drive to her office. So I was that was the reason I was kind of like not doing it, because I was like, I don't want to do it on Zoom, but it's been great. I mean, it maybe after one or two times, the first time or two can be weird. I'm sure it was for you doing
Hmm.
counseling on Zoom. I can't. You're a professional at it, but yeah, but I kind of made the decision, like, you know what? This is the only option right now. So it's die or do this. So I'm gonna do this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, uh, working through the grief, it was important to start counseling, to get some help with that.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to go back. Like, I know what it. I think I was afraid. Like, I don't want to get to that suicidal point. I know what that's like. So
Hmm.
I can kind of like, okay, I know this is the familiar path. And then the startle response was like, of the PTSD was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like this is new and this is not good. So, and I
Hmm.
can't have a funeral with all my friends. Like, just none of the normal things were happening. So, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Right. Right.
so, and it's been okay. It's been great, actually. It's been amazing.
Hmm.
And I forget half the time that we're on Zoom when I talk to her anyway. So,
Hmm. It's amazing that you can say that that
yeah.
that it's great. And
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. The uh, I have two questions. Whether it's grief or just the overwhelm or stress of what people are going through, like you guys are ministering to lots of different people, um, and hearing their stories of what they're going through. Um, what are things that provide healing for you guys, and what are things that you look to that provide hope right now?
I think I know this is going to sound very unspiritual, but
We'll be
you
the
know,
judge of that.
If it
I
works, bring it on.
okay.
I'm taking notes.
I think somebody who loves you enough to sit with you and place a very well placed cuss word in the midst of your situation
Mm,
helped me feel like, okay, it's okay for me to acknowledge that this really sucks
mm,
and this is really hard.
mm.
And I don't have to try to find a Bible verse to make me feel differently about it.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh, let that one sink in.
yeah. Because I think I just realized it's like with our faith with Christians, we know we know the resurrection is real, but that does not take away the fact that death still and suffering still hurts, and that doesn't mean that I'm immune to not having feelings about it.
Mm,
So having someone who is willing to sit with me in those feelings and just listen
mm,
has been really helpful.
mm.
It's been really helpful.
Benjamin, that is uh f- I accept that and resonate with that. Um well, but the verse popped in my head. Like where what is it? Death, where is
Right.
your
I thought
sting?
the exact same thing. Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like in your face, like death, you can't affect me. Yeah, I don't have feelings about this.
Mm.
Um what do you do? What do you do with that?
Hmm. I think death doesn't have the last word,
Mm,
you know. I mean, it's like, well, I mean, you're an MMA guy, right? So
mm,
you might get hit and that hit might hurt, but it doesn't end you.
mm.
And I think that there's that tension there. It's that attention of, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that that hurt, but I'm not going to let that hurt be the only thing that defines me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't pay attention to hurt in the ring, you get knocked out. Like you have to pay attention to the things that hurt,
Exactly.
right? You
Yes.
have to address it. You have to take care of it.
Yeah.
You can't ignore it or sugarcoat it. Um,
Right.
That's good. Oh yeah. Oh, that stab wound there. Oh, just ignore it. Just...
You're
But
right. It'll
if
get
you
better.
do, then they'll get infected. So if you don't tend to it, then the infection can be what kills you. And so yeah, it's yeah.
Well, and it I think sometimes when we I think the Bible is absolutely healing. So I absolutely think that, but sometimes how we use it almost sends the message of I need to stuff this and act like everything's okay.
mm,
And I think that is unhealthy. So if someone can sit with me long enough to really be upset about something, then I can actually be in a posture to listen to anything else. If that
yeah.
makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's so just exhausting about life in pandemic is to just kind of get through the day, work from home or whatever, online school, parenting, take care of your
Mm-hmm.
kids. We have to spend much more energy pretending that we're okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not. The world is not okay. Um,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we just like lay down and give up, but it helps to acknowledge that, have healthy expectations for ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
realize how important it is to take care of our not just emotional, mental health and relational health, but our physical health and physical energy, because everything's connected.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's been a couple times I haven't set my alarm clock, because I usually do get up pretty early, and there's just been a couple times because I have not been sleeping well at all. So
Mm.
when you get that day where you don't have to set the alarm clock, I'm like, Savon will be proud of me. Savon gives me permission that sleep is okay.
That's
Oh my gosh, I've been telling you that
absolutely
for
right.
almost 2 decades.
Well, Savon took a therapist to say it, honey. You know that I don't listen to you.
I get it. I totally get it.
I think you said something earlier too, that to acknowledge that we're not okay. I think that's one of the things that gives me hope, is that that we're finally having the racial conversations. Gives me hope. I'm not saying I'm doing it well or that I know how to do it well, but it's something I've been longing for a while. And I had the privilege of reading Be the Bridge with your wife and daughter, and so that gives me hope. And I think acknowledging or being able to say, I was wrong, or I had this wrong, that actually, learning to be okay with I've screwed up, it feels like the past year or so has been like, there's something so freeing about it. But for so long, it's like, you don't want to acknowledge that maybe you've misunderstood, or you got something wrong, or that you didn't listen well. And so it feels like, oh, there's something so freeing about saying, I'm so sorry, I didn't listen to you, or I didn't get it. And so that gives me hope. And so, not that we have come even close to the conversations like we should be having,
Right.
but I feel hopeful that it feels like we're just scratching the surface. So
Right. It's helpful to acknowledge starting,
yeah,
right? To not to with how far you have to go, or how much more work there needs to be done,
right.
and let that like just discourage you. It's like, no, just it's great. It's great to start.
Yeah,
It's great to start.
And to be a learner. I think for people who are, in ministry or whatever you want to call it, we need to be the chief learners. I mean, we have so much to learn, and so there's something really relieving in that. So.
Yeah.
I don't want to hold you all night, guys, but I want to ask you to speak to any people in ministry, or pastors, or pastors' families, uh, anything that you've learned this past year with the ministries that you've been involved in, that you think might encourage them or help them with their ministries. And so maybe say a little bit more too about the churches that you're helping in.
I think like what I've learned is I have this fear of just being incompetent. I have this fear of being found to be incompetent, to not having I used to be really afraid of not having answers, and I found that the best way I can truly minister to someone else is by being honest. And sometimes the most effective thing you can say to somebody is, I don't know. That's not denying your faith, but it's not trying to come up with an answer because you feel like that's why someone's come to you, because you have to be an expert at something. It's like, no, I'm learning, and this is a hard one. And to be able to, I'm reading a book about Greek Orthodoxy, because there's just some things that just fascinate me about that and Celtic Christianity. And one of their things is this idea that God is mystery, and that there's more to God than we can see. And so being okay with being in mystery, being okay with the tensions that exist, and not feeling the need to create some logical argument for it, for what's going on in somebody's life, I think is really important. And your weakness is sometimes your greatest strength if you're honest about it.
We like to say that that verse, but it's hard to live that one
My gosh.
when you're a
It's
leader too.
it's the weaknesses that everybody has, not the ones that I uniquely have.
Hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, that's vulnerable. It's hard.
Hmm. Yeah. Is there anything that you'd add, Heidi?
Well, I think that ingenuity, I think that the church, like globally, there's so many people and so many creative people, and this has just been really an opportunity to, okay, we can't meet in this building, so how can we fellowship? And outdoor church, we did that for a while in the summer, and even though even if regulations do go back to normal, like I think we will still continue to just embrace outdoor church, because we spend a lot of time inside. So not letting those things be like prison cells, but like, okay, God is doing a
Yeah.
new thing then. And so, and just using, we're continuing to use art. We have a tiny little art church that does meet in person, masked up, but letting art be part of the process, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's writing poetry together or just letting wonder
Yes.
arise. and
Yes.
and there's so many different giftings, and
Hmm.
so I mean there's just so many different kinds of art, and every person is an artist. They just maybe don't view themselves as an artist, but
Hmm.
every person bears the image of God, which means that they are creative. They have art to release. And just what we've been doing this season is looking at winter, it, it as it relates to the human condition, because we're in winter right now. We've
Hmm.
been looking at the life of Joseph. I mean, the guy's thrown into a pit, the guy's accused of adultery, he's put in jail. I mean, the guy is like COVID material. I mean, his life
COVID
is just
material.
one tragedy after another, but the dude is resilient. He just
Yeah.
Right.
chooses to continue where he's at, because and then eventually we see the end of the story.
Mm.
So just looking at scripture, with the farming elements, we're so culturally apart from all those elements. But
Mm-hmm.
if you a lot of folks lost power for what, a week and a half, or some people are probably still out of
Oh,
power.
the rhythms of the seasons.
The rest of the
Right.
seasons, yeah. And then, like, if you figure when he says Jesus is the light of the world, well, for us, we have electricity all the time, so it's not that big a deal to turn on to a light. But anyone who went without power for a while has a whole new understanding of, like, literally we need light. And
Mm.
so
Mm.
looking at a lot of those elements that we're so detached from, because in modern society we don't have to deal with them, so returning to some of those outdoorsy nature elements and the context, and the time of scripture helps to understand. So those are just a few of the things the past few months we've been enjoying and having
Yeah.
fun. Having fun.
We
Having
can have fun at
fun.
church,
I
really?
mean, yes, yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the thing I'd say to people who are in ministry is that comparison is I mean, for artists, comparison is a poisonous thing. It is so poisonous. Because one, it can either make you quit or make you feel you're evaluating yourself by somebody else's either calling or gifting, and instead of
Mm.
looking at, okay, who is the who is God given you? Okay, if every local church is kind of like a little garden, if you're not growing the same kind of garden that, I don't know, like Hillsong or some other church in Portland is growing, that doesn't mean you're failing. In fact, probably should just be looking at, okay, God's given you a bunch of different superpowers in the form of people that have shown up, but it might not look like anything that has been prescribed or done before,
Mm.
and be okay with that.
Yeah. Be unique.
Yes.
Like what is it? Like copycat art or more of the same.
Uh,
That's like boring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, and if it might mean that you get it wrong at first too,
Multiple
it doesn't.
times.
Yeah, I mean, when you're trying something new, it's probably not gonna be awesome in the beginning, but that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. I mean, that's something I have to tell myself.
Beginning
I have to keep telling
podcaster.
myself.
Taking
You're doing
notes.
awesome. I was sitting here looking at your
This is
setup.
fantastic.
I was like, oh my gosh, wow, look at his setup. I was like, oh, we need to like work on ours. Oh yeah, but there's such a comparison, and I think for me, because I played the violin for so long, I kind of feel like I'm really good at it, and people tell me I'm good at it. So then I judge everything else that I do by that, but it's silly.
How well you play violin, compare your painting to how well you play violin. That might be hard.
Yeah, or my writing, or like our church group. Like we don't, we might have a dozen of us. We don't have 700 people, but not despising the small things. That too. That's been really, like not despising small things is really important, and I do that, and I confess that. But I want everything to be huge and amazing, and that doesn't. So
that 12. It was good for Jesus.
Apparently it was.
Yeah, like small and real. So much better than big and fake.
Yep. That should be a T-shirt. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, anything that you guys would like to share or promote? Anything coming up? On the schedule for you guys?
Yes.
Well, the big thing is we redid our website, which is chasingebenezer.com. And this time around, instead of having like a blog section, I made something called the Contemplation Room.
Yes.
Okay.
I've checked into the room
Sweet.
a few times. Yes, yes.
And I created it because that way it's a place for people, even if they're not like believers, to come and to slow down, because we all feel like we need to speed up to be successful. And so there's poetry, there's pictures, there's these moody videos and with some cool background music to it, and just
that you've written all of it, by the way. I can brag on you. You write all the music.
You can, but it's a place for people to kind of be able to slow down and really pay and to check in with themselves and to be able to check in with God. So it's just, if you just go to chasingebenezer.com and click on the Contemplation Room, it'll take you there.
It's very cool. See, like, maybe someone listening, they're listening about art church and Heidi painting, and they're like, and you're saying like, I have the image of God, like I'm creative. I don't relate to that. I'm not sure about that. I don't know where to start. What's cool is like, you don't have to like know what to do or have the supplies or whatever. You just show up. You just connect with artists, and they like, their art can like just like infuse creativity and art and inspire you. So I just show up to your website. Like every week is overwhelming and busy. So your very first one that you posted, it's just like, okay, slow down and breathe. It was great. It was great. So good. Definitely, I'm glad. What about you mentioned outdoor music recently? Any other shows coming up?
Tentatively,
maybe.
There might be one. You're gonna have to check out our Facebook page.
It keeps changing
once I get it booked. But yeah, we're supposed to play in Seaside in the summer right now.
We hope.
We'll see. But there might be something coming up soon.
Okay, so we'll stay tuned. Yes.
Yeah, and season 3 of our web show will be out soon, and that will be much more like I think I mentioned earlier. There'll be a creative worksheet for every week, so that you can have your prompts, and you can be as involved or uninvolved as you like. But it is, because I think that creating too, it's kind of like exercising. That if you don't do anything, then I can just sit there. But it's like once you get started, then it's like there's so many ideas. So it's kind of like just starting is really, really hard. But, you know, we want to just give you just a little thing, even if it's just like you make a snowflake out of paper. I mean, just something really simple to do. It gets the energy going. And oh, you're gonna show us. Ben's been doing a lot of paper art. He's been doing origami, and kirigami.
This stuff is
Yeah.
it's soothing.
Nice.
And it's also very frustrating because you
It's
have to do this
hard.
multiple times. It's very hard.
We got a friend came by and gave us a kit, and it's
Oh.
got like the instructions, but
Yeah.
it's like calculus of origami.
Do you
Like there are levels. There are levels to
yeah.
origami.
My advice,
Yeah.
because I got one of those instructional things, and they're great. They're good, but YouTube,
Yeah, super
watching
helpful.
somebody actually fold it helps so
Oh.
much more.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna do shadow art tomorrow night, John.
For our house church, yeah. I'm excited about
Jesus,
that.
the light of the world. So we're gonna do like shadow art. So yeah, there's limitless. No, does that mean endless? I don't know. English is hard. There are so many opportunities to create, and we want to hear
Awesome,
people's
Mary.
ideas too. We love
Absolutely.
when people like show us what they're making. So yeah, for sure.
That is awesome. Well, Benjamin, Heidi, thank you so much for
Savon, thank
coming
you.
on the
Thank you.
podcast.
This is
You
great.
would never know you were just starting. Natural.
So, thank you so much. So guys, we're gonna post the links to connect with Benjamin and Heidi in the show notes. Check out their the Chasing Ebenezer band page on Spotify or wherever you get your music, and connect with their Facebook to find out when they're going to be performing live in our area here in Oregon, Washington. You guys head up to Washington ever?
If they let us, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oregon for sure.
Oregon's first.
And also I'll include the links to Art Church. And again, thank you guys. I love you guys.
We love
you too, man.
you.
All right.
Thank you.